Well, hello, everybody. It's that time again. Welcome to our October live pet Q&A. My name is Joni Kamlet, and I'm the director of the Pet and Practitioner Departments for Real Mushrooms. And I'm with my mentor and colleague, Dr. Rob Silver. And Rob, I think you have something with you as well. I think there's you have a little added weight.
Finally, after 3 years and much anticipation and many delays, my book is now finally available on Amazon and hopefully sometime soon in bookstores near you. And I actually have an advanced copy of it. If I can get the glare off it. Isn't that cute?
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. I have a friend that said, "Oh, of course you're going to put a border collie on the cover." She's obviously a border collie lover. So it's a great book, if I might say so myself. It's got I kind of do the work by telling stories about pets I've seen, and I've got 8 stories in there that include anxiety, arthritis, allergies, cancer, digestive issues, epilepsy, but also one on wellness, and that's tonight's topic, isn't it?
It is, in fact, tonight's topic, yeah.
And I have a lot of information in there about mushrooms. I've got a little materia medica that gives you details about 12 different mushrooms, as well as information about cannabis and how you can use them together and how you can use other integrative therapies as well as diet. And it's got a bunch of great stuff. And I think Britta's going to post a link to where you can find it on Amazon right now. I'm on the wrong page here with the comments. There we go. So I think you'll find it very helpful, and I don't think it'll eliminate these Q&As, but I think it may actually be a good adjunct to them for more information.
I couldn't agree more. I think the stories are wonderful. I'm so excited for you, Rob. I know how hard you've worked on it, and I just want to say, we're not the only ones that are excited. I mean, we're getting people posting in the pets page about it, but also, the advanced copies that you sent out to some of your colleagues, encourage them to write some beautiful endorsements for the back of the book. You might have heard of some of them: Dr. Karen Becker, Dr. Judy Morgan, Dr. Marty Goldstein, Dr. Eeyore Basco, Lee Carroll, Mark Plotkin. It just goes on and on.
Well, and I didn't know, writing it, I put everything I have into it, and I thought I was doing a good job, but ultimately, there's a bit of nervousness, when you actually have it finished and you send it to people who are also experts, in these areas. And so it was really a nice affirmation that I had done it right.
Yeah. And you did, and so kudos to you. And so y'all know we're going to be going in the November pet Q&A. We didn't know exactly when the book was going to kind of be launched, so we plan to talk more about the book in next month's Q&A. Maybe go and dive a little more into some of the stories and cases, etc. But for tonight, it's National Pet Wellness Month, and so large topic.
Well, I think every month should be Pet Wellness Month, quite frankly.
True.
And the new buzzword for wellness really is longevity. And really it is, creating wellness in your pet that's going to create a long life. And a lot of the strategies for wellness are the same strategies that you may be hearing about with the new buzzword longevity, which of course are, the good diet, supplements that help to prolong life, that help to reduce the stress and strain of free radicals and environmental toxins and those sorts of things. Regular vet visits and diagnostic tests, or if not vet visits, at least visits with a pet health coach who knows what to look for, that has experience. So I think this is like I say, I think this should be every month, but it's good for us to focus on that tonight, and certainly looking forward to getting your questions, so bring them on.
Yeah. Well, the first question we have from Sarah is asking about your book, basically, and if the info in the book also pertains to two-leggeds. And I would be inclined. A lot of it's universal. some of the topics you're talking about. Am I wrong? I mean,
no, you're absolutely right. We missed my little disclaimer though, as Britta was reminding us, which is that the information I'm giving tonight is educational information. It shouldn't be mistaken as direct medical advice from a veterinarian to you about your animal, but the educational advice I give will be very applicable to your questions about your animals. And in regards to that, yes, I think that, we all are, we've all evolved on the same planet under the same physical laws. We all have very similar biochemistry. So yes, of course it does pertain, but there are specifically differences that we see in dosing, in certain types of conditions that are unique to animals that we don't see in humans. And so, in my work, and especially because there's so little available that is, evidence-based, objective, peer-reviewed, all those gold standards for studies about mushrooms in pets, although there are more coming out on a monthly basis. I have to go to a lot of the human literature to understand better how these mushrooms work in order to be able to advise you as far as how they would work with certain pet conditions and certain species as well.
Yeah. One of the things that I love, we're just coming off of a series of conferences. Both Doc Rob and I have spent the past few months going to different conferences around the country. And one of my favorite things that I hear is when people say, I got interested in my dog's health, and I noticed whether it's feeding fresh food or starting supplements or starting mushrooms, whatever. I noticed such a big change in them that it made me change my own health patterns, so,
it
happens.
It goes both directions. We also hear that, well, I just found such a benefit from the use of lion's mane with my own cognition that, I thought maybe it'd be good for my dog who's got sundowners and can't find the dog door.
Yeah.
And usually that is very, very true.
So
and the book also has basic information. I've got a materia medica in there that has 12 different mushrooms in it, which tells you where they're grown, what they look like, what their original, what their names were in different cultures, and what's in them. That's so yes, I think it could be very good for a human being as well.
Will help the whole family and the cats too.
Well, yeah, no, I have one of my stories is about cats around anxiety, because cat anxiety looks a lot different than dog anxiety.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, very exciting. We'll be talking about it for a while. So now we're going to move into some of the questions. We actually got a lot of questions for this topic. So the first one: which mushroom powder would be best for a UTI or urinary tract infection?
Well, understanding that probably any mushroom extract would be good.
Yeah.
I would probably suggest, I'd be more likely to suggest a chaga for that, and possibly cordyceps. Cordyceps, we know, has good levels in the urinary tract in general. It has a protective effect on the kidneys, and all mushrooms, because of their beta-glucan content, can have an effect on infections, and many of them have triterpenes and other types of secondary metabolites that actually have a direct anti-infective function. Reishi also would be quite good. Reishi and chaga. So, reishi and chaga are both in
5 defenders.
So that might be another way to go, because you're also going to get some of the other mushrooms like turkey tail, which also is known to have an anti-infective benefit. Now, lots of times people think they talk urinary tract infection, but many times it's actually not. The infection is maybe secondary to the development of stones or crystals or things like that, dog or cat, both. So, if we're dealing with stones or crystals, then it would be a slightly different approach, because we don't really have information about mushrooms being able to dissolve those stones. And that takes a slightly different management for it. But if it's really an infection, like a E. coli or something like that, then mushroom powder, maybe blended with some cranberry, would be a really good approach to that.
And would you say we might even take a different approach? We don't know if this is a dog or a cat with a UTI. If with a cat, we might maybe go towards the cordyceps, because it's might be a better chance of getting a cat to take it.
It could be. And although the chaga, honestly, I think is quite palatable. It's kind of got more of a woody sort of a taste to it. And, there are some concerns about oxalates in chaga.
Yeah.
And oxalates can actually be a type of stone or crystal that we see in cats and or dogs. So we know that we've done measurements of the oxalates in our chaga, and we know that we have a very, very low level of oxalates that are soluble, that are available for causing problems in the urinary tract. So I think our chaga is safe to use, but I don't know if all chaga would be.
Right. Yeah. You want to know the oxalate content of the chaga you use if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
A good question.
Next question. What do you recommend for a 17-month dog with a yeast infection in ears for 8 months? I've been fed raw with omega-3s, MCT oil, kelp, did 2 yeast protocols and ear drops with no help.
Mm-hmm.
Now itchy anus and vulva, no vaccines, flea. Wow, that sounds like just a yeast overgrowth.
Well, typically we see the yeast problems as being a microbiome, food sensitivity type of an issue. And so that's probably why, even though omega-3s are great, MCT oil is great, kelp's great, and maybe your yeast protocols don't know exactly what they are, but I've seen some published, and but you're not getting to the source. And so so relative to mushrooms, we know that the mushroom microbiome fiber can be very good for the mushroom fiber can be very good to help support the microbiome, because we really want to see the microbiome be healthier. But I think either looking at doing an elimination diet in terms of trying to define which food ingredients of which foods you're feeding might be causing this to happen, or going to one of the tests that we have available for food sensitivities. And the one that I'm most familiar with, I know there's a few out there, and I'm currently actually actively looking into them to understand them better, because I don't really want to recommend a test unless I understand it and get to see the validation for that test. But it's a test that's been put out by Dr. Jean Dodds, who's quite active in our realm of holistic and integrative medicine. And her test, it's a nice home test. It's a saliva test. You send away for the test kit, and it's not that cheap, quite frankly, but switching diets, as expensive as diets can be these days, and never coming up with an effective answer is another expense. So sometimes it's worthwhile spending a little more so you can save more later. But you buy this you buy the test, and you have a little vial that has rope in it. You put it in the animal's mouth, they chew on it and they salivate on it, and then the rope absorbs it, and then you send it back, and then they give you like 24 different ingredients, but also all the cross reaction that we see in different ingredients. This test even differentiates between white fish like cod and red fish like salmon. And I didn't know that there was actually, fish is fish, I figured. So I think that's where I would start. But I think the use of a mushroom in the meantime would be a good idea. And so I would think, that maybe the 5 defenders. I'm not sure. Tremella, we're starting to think about more for its use with derm problems. And this is a derm kind of problem. I just don't have enough experience with it yet to say, let's put some Tremella in there along with the, with the 5 defenders or the chaga or the reishi.
And the Jean Dodds test, that's the hemopet test. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, it's called Nutriscan.org would be the website that you would go to order it, and you would want to order you'd want to order the full test. And I think it's somewhere north of $200 for the pet parent to purchase. And that's why a lot of vets don't provide it, because it's really something they can't mark up. But I used to recommend people go there, get it themselves, and then have me noted as the veterinarian on the form. So then they send me the results as well. And then we have a consultation where we discuss how we use those results to change the diet.
Yeah. So if you can, by the way, shout out to Britta Berube, who's behind the scenes, who's going to be helping us out while Jordan's taking some time off. Britta, if you can, it's Nutriscan. What is it? NUTRISCAN.org.
NUTRISCAN.org.
Yeah, if you can drop that in the chat, that would be awesome. That's the Dr. Jean Dodd's testing.
And it has worked for me quite a bit. I've heard some other people complain about it, but I think it's not an easy thing, and it's not like a slam dunk, like, oh, this makes it simple. So but it's definitely a lot easier than an elimination diet without having this knowledge, because
shooting in the dark and not,
absolutely.
Yeah. I'm just on the subject of yeast. I've been reading more and more about avoiding fermented foods if you have a dog with a yeast issue.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
So that's something. Yeah.
Huh.
There's been a lot of talk in the pet groups about avoiding, being careful with things like bone broth, that type of thing.
Bone broth is fermented?
Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry. No, blank. Take that back. I'm thinking of something else.
All right.
It's been a long day.
Because I would think that, like, let's say there's a product out there I think is pretty good called Gussie's Gut. It's a local Boulder product. I know the people that make the fermented vegetables, and so it's a great way of supporting the microbiome, which we know ultimately controls this yeast thing.
Yeah, I've got a couple conversations mixed up. Forgive me. It's been a long day. Britta, let's move onto Christine, who's on live, has a question. Are there any mushrooms or supplements that can help a dog newly diagnosed with Lar Par, which is laryngeal paralysis, and then GOLPP?
GOLPP is a new, and they've got all these new acronyms that I'm not really familiar with, but GOLPP is related to Lar Par, and it basically talks about it as being more of a neuropathy type of problem. And Lar Par is pretty difficult stuff. I used to use a laser actually on the larynx itself for early symptoms of it, and there's some Chinese herbs which we also used for that as well. But it is a neuro kind of a problem, so that tells us that we should look at an herb that has benefit in the neuro system, which would be our lion's mane. But it's I think it would be a good support, good foundation. It would help to make things maybe be a little better in terms of supporting the nervous system, but whether it would be help or not, a lot of it may depend on your own dog, how progressed it is. You say it's newly diagnosed, so that's probably good. I mean, it's that roaring kind of a sound that they kind of thing, or the bark. So I would start there at least, but and it may be that the surgery itself, as yucky as it seems to be, it's a tie-back surgery. They go in there and they just use some sutures to tie open the laryngeal folds, because what happens is the nerves don't work well on the larynx, and so the larynx winds up kind of being closed, and the animal has trouble breathing. It has trouble vocalizing. It can go into crisis when it's very severe, and they just mechanically, with the sutures, open it up enough so they can breathe better and they can bark better, but it also increases the risk of aspiration pneumonia because they don't have that ability to close those vocal folds, which helps to protect the lungs from getting stuff in them.
Yeah. No, lion's mane sounds like a good idea. And what do you think? Maybe possibly even tremella?
Well, I think pairing lion's mane with tremella is a good idea in general, because they both have that neuro support factor to them.
Yeah. And Christine, if you do try it, and we'd love to hear if you get some positive results, because that's how we find out, sometimes just by, feedback. I mean, Rob, Doc Rob is working with veterinarians who are, they're out there in the field and relying on each other often for feedback on what's working, with mushrooms. But it's also helpful, for people when they're using our products to give us the feedback.
I'm envious of my colleagues, the two human practitioners who do what I do, but on the human side with real mushrooms, because there are so many studies. Now, maybe we don't see laryngeal paralysis in humans, but there's just so many studies that they're able to quote and cite, and that are in humans, and I just don't have that for the critters. And so what Joni's talking about is really what I'm trying to establish is a network of practitioners who are using mushrooms regularly, so I can get quite a bit of feedback about specific applications for diseases that aren't that common, like Lar Par.
Yeah. And it's great. Like, or if you have a dog with lipomas, with fatty lumps, take a before picture. We get a lot of feedback about turkey tail helping these fatty lumps, but I've never actually physically seen a before and after picture.
I'd like to see that too.
Things like that, because then we could say like, yeah, we did have somebody that tried it on their dog, and we saw visual evidence that there was a change. Otherwise, it's often just, it's all anecdotal. But we'd like to be more kind of specific. When we give feedback, it's always helpful to have something to refer to as far as, actually seeing that it's worked, or hearing the feedback that it's worked.
Right. And these monthly Q&As are a great way to kind of generate that and get interest. And I know Joni and I both learn a lot from your feedback on these monthly meetings. So
absolutely. The next question, what mushroom to give my kitty cat to improve kidney disease? Thank you.
Well, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this for a while, that the cordyceps mushroom has been shown to be protective of the kidneys, and actually in cases of chronic kidney disease has been able to improve the values. The nice thing about cordyceps is the taste is quite acceptable to most cats. They're not all cats. And you don't need much of it, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon in each meal. And I think it tastes a little bit like toast. It's very bland tasting. Cordyceps is a relative of truffles, relative of morels in terms of that category of type of fungus. So I would go with the cordyceps. And maybe the best place to go would be to start with I don't know. We have it in pouches, which makes it easy, but we also have it in capsules, which are the larger sized capsules, which would be like 1/4 of a teaspoon. So you could maybe sprinkle half a capsule in the morning and half a capsule at night, and that would work. Or just get the bulk pouch.
Yeah. There's a good question that's come in from Jennifer's Dramatic Pause. Britta, can you pull that one up? Because something that comes up often, and we love addressing it. I understand the care Real Mushrooms puts into growing their mushrooms and how they are careful to harvest the fruiting body. How do you recommend I address those with concerns that they are grown in China?
Well, other than the geopolitical concerns that we have about China, which are real, China has the most experience when it comes to cultivating mushrooms. Their experience goes back to 400, 600, 800, 1000 BC. So they know what they're doing. And they grow 85% of the world's medicinal and edible mushroom supply. So we've been very careful to work with mushroom growers in China who understand our concerns, who are able to grow the mushrooms under USDA certified conditions. We third-party test everything to ensure that they are not contaminated, which I guess is probably the other big question people have about China, the pollution or contamination, other than the possibility that there could be adulteration without our knowing it. But everything is tested for identity, so we know what we have is what it is. Our founders, they go to China several times a year and visit the growers, and we've got some pretty nice videos and photos. They're posted on our website now somewhere, aren't they? Or a blog showing you just how amazing it is. A lot of the places that we grow mushrooms in China are where they were originally found and grown thousands of years ago. Our reishi farm, it's right where, reishi is like known to be the best growing spot in China. So we share your concerns about things coming from China, and because of that, we make sure that what you get is of the best quality.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And just to add on to what you said, Dr. Robin, that was a great answer. I mean, we're growing in the very rural mountainous regions of China. These are families that have been growing for generations, but also like, it's not just us, like Consumer Lab, Consumer Lab is like the Consumer Reports of the supplement industry. They don't take any money. They don't do any for advertising or anything like that. They independently rate supplements. And for the third year in the row, we've been rated the best mushrooms, our reishi, I believe, and our lion's mane. And they do all of that testing. So, and then also the NASC, we're getting certified with the National Animal Supplement Council. So yeah. And Jennifer, no, we're not going to share online who does our third-party testing. You can reach out to us through email if you like, but but we've been doing this close to 40 years now, over 35 years. Jeff Chilton, who founded our parent company, went over to China and started working with these farmers. So I'm very proud of how we grow and that we grow in China. And Rob, you and I have both seen the challenges in the veterinary side of things with things from China. I was in hands-on practice during the melamine issue, where I had, dogs in the practice I was working at that died from the melamine poisoning. So, this isn't something that we take lightly at all. Yeah, so I hope that helps. And you feel free to reach out to us if you have more questions. Next question, can hemp oil be taken while getting one immune chewable mushroom?
Absolutely, I recommend it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because of my expertise in cannabis, I've been working hard looking at combining the mushrooms with cannabis and where that's going to have an advantage. And we know that the hemp oil, the CBD, and the other good components in it have a beneficial effect on the immune system, as does the immune tubes. And when I first came, I mentioned, to the company that, we certainly could put together some products that would contain hemp oil along with it. But because it's a Canadian company and there's issues with everything between the two countries, whatever, the company feels it's much simpler to not incorporate hemp into the product. So, that's fine.
Yeah, but if you hint, hop over to Doc Rob's Well Pet Dispensary, where he sells mushroom hemp combined products. Yeah. And they're amazing. My little dog Scruffy, I just have to give you a shout out again. Like, she doesn't do well in the car, and I drove all the way across country using your hemp and mushroom chews, and it was a breeze with her. So
we've just upgraded them, and now we have the Silver Dog Forte, which has 12 milligrams of CBD per chew and 6 milligrams, we doubled it, 6 milligrams of CBG, 500 milligrams of lion's mane, and 500 milligrams of cordyceps in each chew. So, and we didn't change the price. Wow. So they're, Ollie likes them a lot.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, if Ollie likes them, then they must be good. Yeah. So the next question from A. Jenkins, what's the latest on your new feline product, the never-ending debate? Oh my God.
Between supply chain issues and I formulated it that I wanted to put some of the newest, latest, greatest ingredients in there. And I didn't realize that the supply of those would be as limited or difficult to get to, or turns out more expensive than really could make the product affordable for most people. So we're looking at that closely. We have a meeting scheduled tomorrow morning, in fact, and it will happen. It will happen.
We're hoping early next year, and we've got some other really exciting products coming out as well. But but that's the challenge, because we won't we won't use inferior ingredients. So if we can't get the high quality ingredients that Dr. Rob wants in the product, then it becomes a challenge. And it's
the next best, I mean, there are a lot of great ingredients out there. They don't all have supply chain issues associated with them. And usually when I choose, some advanced ingredients, I usually go to the company that, has them, that has them trademarked or brand named or whatever it is known for them, to find out about their availability and before I put them in the formula. And so I did speak with the company in New Zealand, but directly, which wasn't that easy to do. And, and I thought that it was going to be a slam dunk, but it turns out it was not.
Yeah, well, it'll be worth waiting for. And the good news is that the Daily Dog, which we do have, kids really like it. So, it's, and I think that pretty maybe in the beginning of the next year, we might be having Daily Dog samples showing up. If you order product, you might get a little Daily Dog sample in your box.
Aren't we also going to come out with a larger sized Daily Dog?
We're
working on that too.
In the works. It's in the works. So now we've got the little samples so people can try for palatability, and I think we're going to be sending them out like when people order pet products. So that's going to be exciting. It'll give you an opportunity to try it first. Oh, and thank you, Britta. So as usual, we run a special during these Q&As. So you can get 25% off site-wide until October 31st by using the code PetWellness25. So I don't know if you see that, pull out your camera and take a screenshot of that. So, because if you're like me, I'll totally forget
Is that case sensitive? Does that all have to be uppercase to work?
Probably not. Yeah, I doubt it. So the next question: what mushrooms can be used for kennel cough?
Well, for cough, the two best mushrooms are reishi and cordyceps. So I would probably go with one or the other. I don't think you need to use both. Kennel cough is an infectious combination of both a virus and a bacteria. And so certainly reishi has those anti-infective properties. It also helps to regulate cough. It kind of reduces cough. It helps with bronchitis, as does the cordyceps, but it also improves the immune system response to that, which is probably its best bet. But you may need to also use a more pharmaceutical like cough suppressant, because the thing about coughing is that it kind of is self-creating. When you cough, you cough because your trachea is irritated, but when you cough, it's more irritant, which causes more. And so even though, I know most people that are here want to avoid the use of pharmaceuticals, I think that there's a time and a place to use a little bit of a pharmaceutical for maybe 5 days to kind of cut that cough while the other things are working. And there are over-the-counter pharmaceuticals like dextromethorphan, like kind of we find in Robitussin DM, which can work. I think the best one, though, is more of a narcotic-based called butorphanol, and there's a couple of different trade names like that. But you could probably go over-the-counter with the dextromethorphan.
Thanks, Doc Rob. Next questions. Are there any mushroom supplements that should be stopped prior to anesthesia for surgery on a 13-year-old dog?
Well, I think that, it might be a wise idea, in spite of whether or not a mushroom could cause a problem, to kind of make it easier on the dog system and the veterinarian and everything else. To stop a few days before, and give yourself maybe 3 to 5 days before stop, and maybe 3 to 5 days after, then start back up again, just to be on the safe side. Generally, the answer to your question is, I don't really think so. But I'm speaking to a wide audience here, and I'd rather make sure that the advice that I give is kind of generically safe, and maybe a little bit overly safe rather than underly safe.
Yeah, we always want to err on the side of caution when it comes to something like this. So it's not going to hurt to stop a couple days before and a couple days after.
Especially if you're getting it long term, then we have this whole thing about training of the immune system and the fact that these really aren't drugs; these are superfoods, and they don't just die off in 24 hours like drugs do. They persist in the body, their effect for a pretty substantial period of time.
Yeah. Next question. My dog has recently been diagnosed with leukemia. He has been on 5 defenders for several months, but I'm wondering if he would benefit more from turkey tail mushrooms.
I don't know, quite frankly. I've looked at cordyceps as having some studies for lymphoma. Leukemia is kind of a bloodborne type of lymphoma. But I think that, I think if you wanted to try the turkey tail, I don't know if you're testing them regularly for that, because that's really, I don't know how else you're going to know if it's helping. The best way would be, to try the turkey tail. Now, there's turkey tail already in the 5 defenders, but there's also, 4 other great mushrooms. So, you could look at maybe increasing the dosage of the 5 defenders as compared to switching to a whole different mushroom in order to increase the amount of all the actives that are in there. But that's
Or couldn't they just continue with the 5 defenders and then just add turkey tail as well? I know a lot of people in the pet groups are doing that. Sure. Is the 5 defenders to kind of cover all the bases, but then just a little extra turkey tail. So we do have the single turkey tail capsules and powders that you could do that.
Yeah, we have that in pet-sized capsules too.
Yeah. The next question, and then after this one, we're going to take Stephen's question and the comments there, Britta. My 3-year-old boxer leaks urine after being spayed. Can mushrooms help? Cranberry supplements did not help.
Well, the leaking is generally a hormone deficiency as we define it. Commonly found in females. We see it in males when they get very old, and it's more of a prostatic issue. And the conventional treatment for that is the use of an antihistamine called phenylpropanolamine that kind of just tightens up that little sphincter and makes it better. And sometimes that's a very simple solution. Dogs who have hypertension or cardiac issues, that could be a problem. And sometimes a simple answer is the best. But if you were to want to use a mushroom for that, then probably the best mushroom would be cordyceps, which has an influence on estradiol production and can stimulate some estrogen production, which it's the estrogen deficiency, especially now that they're basically menopausal, having been spayed, that is causing that leakage. So it might help, be worth a try. And if it does, let us know that it worked for you.
Yeah, if I could just throw something out just from my I worked for a decade at Standard Process before coming to Real Mushrooms, and there's a product in the Standard Process line called Simplex M. There's Simplex M for male and Simplex F for females, and we used to recommend combining that with another one of their products called Myo Plus or Cardio Plus. And we actually, I can say I did see some positive results with dogs that were leaking using that combination, the Simplex M and the Cardio Plus, because the heart's a muscle. And this is a muscle as well that you're kind of working on. Anyway, hope that's okay.
Yeah, there's also Chinese herbal formulas for that as well. It's considered to be a kidney yang deficiency in Chinese medicine.
Yeah. So the next question from Stephen, our 11-year-old yellow lab was diagnosed with hemangiosarcoma. He's doing well 4 weeks after splenectomy. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. And then I know Stephen had a follow-up that he's currently on turkey tail and Yunnan Bayao.
Okay, well, I think that's a real good start, Stephen. There is a chapter in my book specifically about a patient that that had hemangiosarcoma. This was a patient where they refused to splenectomize. But we used very, very high dosages of the turkey tail and made sure we gave plenty of the Yunnan Bayao. The Yunnan Bayao, in addition to having an anti-bleeding effect, does seem to have a slowing down effect on the possible metastasis. And that's our biggest question about what's happened. If the spleen had already bled out into the abdomen, that seeded little micro tumors maybe around the liver and things like that. I think that's a really good start, and I would try to see how high you can give that turkey tail. Because it's from the study that was done with the turkey tail extract on hemangiosarcoma, they found that there was a dose response. That the higher dose you gave, the longer the animals lived, the better they did. So giving as much as the dog will tolerate and as much as your budget will tolerate is a good strategy. Certainly, there's other things that you can do as far as diet. We find that the ketogenic diet has a lot of value. There's some Chinese herbs that we use for hemangiosarcoma, specifically for hemangiosarcoma. There's one called the modified shuivu shuyutang. Some people use the formulas from Jingtong Herbal, Stasis Breaker, and Wei Qi Booster. But it's a tough diagnosis, and you need to be as aggressive as you can, as early as you can in the course of the disease, and pray that your dog does well. The average survival time without any treatment is only a couple of months. With treatment, it's probably, it's more like 8 to maybe 14 or 15 months. But we do see some very substantial and exceptional cases where they do live for several years. So, it's definitely worth trying. You've gone this far, you need to go the full 100 yards.
Yeah. No, that agreed. And we have seen some pretty profound feedback on dogs that are, doing, well under the circumstances. And Stephen, I don't know if you're a member, maybe you're actually in our Facebook for Pets group, but we do have a Real Mushrooms for Pets Facebook page. It's a private group, and there's a number of people who are dealing with the same issue you are that could also give you support and feedback in that group. We wish you the best of luck. Next question. My dog has incredible skin issues, itching and hair loss. I don't want him on steroids. Any suggestions?
Well, there's a lot of different types of skin issues, and so I'm not sure exactly what that is. And sometimes, even topical steroids can be an answer because they do work well. I agree with you that systemic steroids long term can be a problem. So I won't go there with that part of my answer. It could be relative to diet in terms of some sensitivity to the diet, and it could be an allergic response. There could be more of an autoimmune kind of a condition going on, when it seems like it's very severe itching on that. We typically look at the tremella mushroom as having a good value for derm issues, and of the other mushrooms that you might want to use, I would recommend the reishi mushroom. But I think that it's much more complicated than just finding the right supplement to give him. There may be a diet issue, there may be a microbiome issue, things like probiotics or the fecal microbiome transplant can sometimes be helpful. I mean, there's a lot of things to try to do other than the steroids. But the steroids, and I agree with you, steroids are problematic, but they can sometimes bring relief and maybe bring short-term relief to an animal who's suffering. There's also topicals that you can use, and I was very fond of a topical leave-on shampoo. I don't know if they make it anymore. That like you could start with a tar and sulfur shampoo, which helps to bring some relief to that pruritic, itchy skin, and then I would follow that up with a leave-on conditioner that had the steroid in it, hydrocortisone. Now, hydrocortisone is the least potent of all the steroids, and topically, there's very little that's going to be absorbed systemically, but topically, it does give some relief. I mean, your dog's miserable, and we do want to see if we can make it more comfortable, and sometimes that may mean that we have to go with something a little stronger, depending on what they've got.
And I'll just, add to that the fact that, of course, what's happening on the skin usually originates in the gut, and we don't know what kind of diet your dog is on, but you would want to kind of do a review of probably of that as well. There might be something, a change in diet might also support in addition to what Doc Rob said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like a poodle, for instance, would get, a disease that's actually a genetic disease, in terms of, go ahead.
Yeah.
We'll go next.
Next question. Are there any mushrooms or combination of mushrooms to avoid for a nervous dog with environmental allergies and food sensitivities manifesting in post-meal, post-exercise, and wake-up paw-licking? So basically, is there anything that can help with paw-licking?
Well, they're talking about avoiding the mushrooms as being possible triggers for these sensitivities.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I would say that, perhaps you've done some food sensitivity testing, and, if mushrooms are not part of that, then I wouldn't worry about it. But are you giving mushrooms currently, or are you just wanting to give mushrooms for this? If you're not giving mushrooms yet, and you'd like to see if you could give mushrooms to help with this condition, probably the best way is to challenge the dog with a small amount of mushrooms for a day or two to see what kind of response you get, because using a small amount for a couple of days may not create a very long-lived reaction. Unfortunately, there will be a reaction, but that would be one way to kind of actually test them in real life to see, or maybe the testing that you have, if you have done some testing, perhaps they've tested for fungi, for yeast, for mushrooms, but it's really very individual. And we don't see a lot of sensitivity to mushrooms, but we do have some individuals who are. And so it's wise to be cautious when starting something new, whatever it might be.
Anything, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I would look to do that. But yeah, I think mushrooms could be helpful here, especially in terms of what they could do to help with the microbiome. And we know that the microbiome is not just about allergies. It's not just about the immune system. There's a gut-brain linkage that the microbiome is connected to. And so there's also certain changes to the microbiome that promote nervousness as well. When they do these fecal transplants from one dog to another, if you take a nervous dog and you take his poop and you transplant it into the other dog, they become nervous too. So it's a complicated. I mean, I'm sure you understand it's complicated if you've been living with the dog with these problems. I'm sorry for that, because it must make life difficult for both of you.
Yeah, my little dog Scruffy's been licking just one paw. It's driving me nuts. Took her to the vet. We can't figure out why.
Okay. Broken nail?
No, not a broken nail. Nothing. Nails look fine. Paws, everything fine. She's moving fine. She just likes to lick that one.
Maybe there's some arthritis in it. Sometimes they lick things when they're painful, as kind of a self.
Yeah, we looked into that. She's perky like this. She's not showing any signs. There's no heat, nothing.
Of it. No.
So anyway, it's a mystery. Next question. I have a 14-year-old min pin who has been on ursodial for 6 years, and his, I imagine, liver count is going up again slowly. Can a mushroom supplement be better for him? I would like to take him off the pill.
Well, ursodial originally was gotten from bear gallbladder. I think now they get that as an extract from pig gallbladder, and it's good to use with liver disease, and there's not much bad about it except how it's gotten from pigs. It's probably a slaughterhouse product. Silymarin, milk thistle, has an effect very much like ursodial, which helps to thin the bile and helps to improve the contraction of the gallbladder, and also has a direct effect on the liver in terms of trying to improve its detoxification and try to improve the health of the actual liver cells themselves. So I think looking at that is a good idea, but that's not a mushroom. So as far as a mushroom that's good for the liver, over and over again, the studies point to reishi. So I would look at, getting some milk thistle in there, probably a standardized silymarin type of product, and I would look at getting some reishi in there. I probably wouldn't discontinue the ursodial right away. I'd keep him on the ursodial while you start the silymarin, while you start the mushrooms, see how he does. Maybe you're doing regular blood tests to see how that looks as well. That's your liver count, I guess. And so you might want to stay on the ursodial while you add these on, have a baseline blood test, and then over a period of a month or two, gradually reduce the amount of the ursodial as these start to take over the work of helping the liver.
Sounds like a good plan. Next question from Chris. Flea dermatitis relief. Fresh food fed, goat's milk and mushrooms. I do give relaxed chews. What others may help?
Well, of course, eliminate the fleas.
Get the flea, get rid of the fleas. Easier said than done sometimes.
Yes. Well, and even if the fleas are eliminated, it's like once the flea saliva, which is what precipitates the itchiness, gets going, sometimes it becomes a perpetual thing regardless, or the animal makes it worse because they're scratching it, and so it never quite has a chance to heal. And I don't know if I actually have a specific question for him. The relaxed chews maybe help to reduce the anxiety, around that itchiness. And certainly diet is good. Goat's milk, I'm sure that's fine too. You don't say what mushrooms. So, again, for skin, we're looking at the tremella mushroom.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Pretty good. And, and it may be that would be worthwhile using that alone. I think also, my talk, this last question about topical hydrocortisone or something like that may also give your dog, local relief for it that doesn't go systemic. And it may be that it breaks the cycle because there's like an itch, scratch type of deal. And so if we can break that and moisturize the skin and provide some good health, fish oil can also be very, very good for the skin, as can flaxseed oil or even flaxseed meal, which is even better than the oil because it contains the plant lignans and other secondary metabolites that have a balancing effect on the immune system and the adrenal glands and the hormones in the body. And Joni's got a suggestion too.
I do. Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking we haven't talked really about daily dog much, but I'm just thinking about my little dog Scruffy, who's right here, who everyone that goes to pet, her name is Scruffy. She's got this, what should be really rough fur, but ever since I started her on the daily dog, and it's coming up on, not quite a year. We launched it, in February. People, when they bend down to pet her, almost invariably, they say, oh my gosh, her coat's so soft. I didn't expect it to be soft. And it's making me think if it might also have a positive effect on the skin, like maybe with an issue like this, also with the detox stuff that's in the daily dog. I don't know.
We don't have enough experience using it yet to get the kind of feedback.
Yeah.
I think it certainly could be valuable. I don't think it would hurt to use, unless there's sensitivity to shellfish or something, which isn't common in dogs.
Right.
So, I'm sorry for the problem. I'm sure it's not fun to have your guy scratching all the time. And usually that itch is always in the lower portion of their back, kind of over the hips and tail area.
And every time you go to pet them or scratch, the back leg goes. Yeah. Next question. My 7-year-old rescue has GSD Pyoderma.
German Shepherd dog. I didn't know there was.
I didn't know that there was such thing as German Shepherd dog Pyoderma, but she's on 1,000 milligrams of 5 defenders, and the vet dermatologist just put her on pentoxifylline.
It's vasculitis. I'm kind of curious about that.
1 tablet 2 times a day, and then 3 times a day after 14 days. Any other mushroom recommendations?
Okay. Well, I would say that, probably the more of the 5 defenders. If it has German Shepherd dog Pyoderma, I bet it's a German Shepherd, which is fairly large. So we'd probably want to get a higher dosage in there. So I'd probably go maybe 2,000 twice daily. If that's how you're doing it, you may want to go to the powder to get it easier to get in there. I think that the tremella could also be helpful just in terms of its value to the skin.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that he wants to use pentoxifylline on that. And oftentimes pyoderma is also a microbiome issue. It's not uncommon, like the pyoderma we see with ear problems or interdigital or back with the anal glands. So I look at diet as well. There may be, I mean, your vet probably doesn't, and with all due respect to veterinary dermatology, probably doesn't look at the diet quite as much as maybe we should, or the diet and microbiome combined.
Right.
We just so much that we're learning about the microbiome. It just seems global in terms of its ability to help with so many different conditions that you wouldn't even think were related to bowel bacteria.
Yeah, seems like the best starting point for everything, really.
I think absolutely it is.
Yeah, start with the gut.
Mm-hmm.
The next question, what mushrooms are good for senior dogs with early stage kidney disease?
Well, I think early stage kidney disease, especially looking at cordyceps. We talk about it for cats, but senior dogs do also get kidney disease, not as commonly as cats do. And of course, it would be good for a senior dog. I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, agreed. We got time for maybe one more question, maybe two. We'll see. Mm-hmm. I test my dog's vitamin D levels each year. One usually tests in the optimal range and the other tests slightly high. Could the mushroom supplements be contributing to the vitamin D, contributing vitamin D to their diets?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It depends what mushroom supplements you're using. Now, we don't irradiate our mushroom supplements, which is what you need to do, irradiate with ultraviolet light in order to stimulate the ergosterol in the supplement into the dietary form of vitamin D2 precursor. And from mushrooms, we're getting vitamin D2, not vitamin D3, which is much safer, but the tests can't differentiate between vitamin D3 and vitamin D2. And not knowing what the ranges are, you can go as high as 150 milligrams of the vitamin D, and it's still a safe level. And in some cases where you think vitamin D could be helpful, giving them a higher level can also be good as well. We've got some pretty good tests on vitamin D.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we do. We do have a vitamin D product that we do irradiate, and the D to Z, which we irradiate for the vitamin D.
Exactly. So I don't know if you're talking about our own mushroom supplements or if they're from another company or if they've been sitting, I don't know if they sit out in the sunlight, are they going to convert? Maybe they would. Generally, we talk about with a fresh mushroom, that's generally what we're irradiating. And it's best if you irradiate them on the gills or the pores, because that's where the ergosterol has the highest concentration in the mushroom.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, one more question. Let's squeeze another one in. What would the dosage be for turkey tail mushroom powder for a 50-pound intact standard poodle with 5 mammary lumps? Using ozone gas to treat, would it be wise to alternate or add 5 defenders? Oh, you got a dosage question. You just don't won this live.
Well, if you're using the turkey tail mushroom powder, and this is a dog that seems to have quite a bit of mammary tumors, we want to try to give it as high a dose as possible. And so just looking at that first part of the question alone, and I'm looking at basically an eighth of a teaspoon, I would go a quarter of a teaspoon per 10 pounds of body weight. That's a pretty substantial dosage twice daily. So that's going to be, a teaspoon and an eighth, teaspoon and a quarter twice daily. And I think that would be a good dosage. If you can get it higher, go higher. These are all estimates. I wouldn't know that I'd necessarily alternate. I think the turkey tail is probably a pretty good one to use. There's studies in humans with breast cancer, which is what this is, with turkey tail that were successful. So I would say probably stick with the turkey tail, but increase the amount you're giving.
Yep. Oh, and thanks, Britta. So just a reminder to everybody that's listening live, you get 25% off site-wide on realmushrooms.com until October 31st using Pet Wellness 25. So recommend pulling out your camera and taking a screenshot of this, because I swear I go on when I see something like this, I go on and then I totally forget what the code is. Wow, that was a quick hour.
Because I love these. I love these.
Yeah.
I could do another hour.
You want to hold up that weighty thing on your desk just in case anybody was getting. Oh, so heavy. How many pages? 300 and
No, nearly 500.
Nearly 500 pages of mushroom, cannabis, CBD, veterinary wisdom. Amazing, amazing book. This is not a small book. This is a desk reference type book that is also a great read. It's not a slog through this book. It's a book that will like really hold your interest, and it's entertaining.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with my writing. I'm not quite sure how I did it.
Who wrote that?
But the stories are really good stories. They read well. You're right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we will see you guys next month, and we're actually going to go into a few of those stories next month. Next month, we're actually going to be talking more about the book, and I'm going to be asking Doc Rob to share some of the actual cases and stories that are in the book. So looking forward to that.
Great. Sounds terrific. I look forward to seeing you all next month.
Okay. See y'all, and thanks, Britta.